This movie is about scripting, in particular about user input. Any good game allows for the user to input. In Unity, specific keystroke use is discouraged, although you can do that, and I'll show that to you in a moment. But what Unity uses is called input axes. So if you go Edit, Project Settings, Input, you will have a window like this. If you hit the little triangle to drop down the menu, you'll have all these axes. What are these axes? Well, they define movement. Like horizontal, it's given a name called horizontal. You could rename it if you wanted to. It has a negative button, a positive button, an alternative negative positive, and a variety of other fields that will help you. There are also other ones like fire, jump, mouse X, mouse Y. You can use joysticks with these, all kinds of good stuff. To be honest with you, most people will use, at least we will, when we write our games, the horizontal and the vertical. How are those used? Well, let me show you a little script I wrote just to illustrate some of these properties. First of all, you'll notice I declared a bunch of different variables. All right. And down in the update, I actually get values and put those into the variables. Let's say that you wanted to find out if the person is moving right or left, or hitting buttons that would move a character right or left in the game. How do you do that? You use input.getAxis, and then you input the name, or you write the name in quotes of the specific axis. So if you wanted a horizontal movement, you put input.getAxis, quote, horizontal. You could do the same thing for vertical. You can put any of those axis names in there, and you will get a value from it that you can then store in a variable. So for example, I have this variable hval, which stands for horizontal value. That equals input.getAxis, quotes, horizontal. All right? Now that's using the axes, and again, you can use any axis name you want that was in that list. But what if you just wanted to figure out if they hit a key? How would you do that? Well, then you can use input.getKey and then a key code. Unity has a bunch of key codes that represent different letters on the keyboard. So input.getKey would return a value. Now above here, when I got this hval, notice that was a float, right? It's a number. But down here, when I go to input.getKey, I store that in a variable called isKeyDown because that function, that method, returns a Boolean. In other words, it's asking, is the key down or not? It'll return a true or a false. You can also get mouse input, and you're going to use input.getMouseButtonDown. For example, you could use input.getMouseButtonUp, and there are some other ones related to mouse buttons. For mouse buttons, you can enter a number. A 0 stands for the left mouse button, a 1 represents the right mouse button, and a 3 represents the center mouse button. All those allow you to get to figure out if someone has clicked a mouse button. Let's talk about another axis that may be used, actually another two that might be used quite a bit. Again, we're going to use input.getAxis, but if you'll notice back in Unity, there are a couple other axes besides horizontal and vertical that actually might be somewhat useful, and they are the mouse X and the mouse Y axes. And they would indicate if the mouse is moving horizontally or vertically. And again, the way you do this is you say input.getAxis, and then you put the exact name of that axis, which is mouse X or mouse Y. Both of these return numbers, which is the X or Y location of the mouse on the screen. So you can really do a lot with user input. Unity provides some very easy ways to get that user input and to store it. It might seem like a little bit of a hassle to use the axes, but in the long run, it can really help the user, because if they don't like the way you set up your program, they can actually remap the controls using the axes.